Check, check. Okay, guys, so this is just a quick video to essentially say something very simple, which is do what works. And I understand that that seems very obvious, but what I really mean by all of this is make sure that you do not allow your ego and your mind to place more value on something uh, than it will return on your investment. So, a good example of this can be charting. I had the pleasure when I was focusing more on a trance sound to chart, and I charted a couple of times, and I charted pretty darn high, well into the top 10 out of a top 100 charting system on a very well known music website for buying and streaming essentially DJ music, club music, music that when you buy, you assume it has an intro and an outro so that you can mix in and out of it. Um, as well as on major music platforms in other countries that are more so for the casual everyday listener. Not much came from that charting. I can't say that nothing came from it, but nothing so big came from it that I could honestly recommend that you focus your efforts on that. I have had 1,000 times better ROI on making original music with an original branding, being personable to my fans and engaging them, even when it was during the beginning of the pandemic. So that was like March, April, May of 2020. And just talking to the one person a day that would friend my Instagram and any of my social media accounts for that matter. Um, and just straight up say, wow, thank you so much for following me. And just start up a convo and not necessarily make it about me. Where are you from? What do you do? What did you like the most? What do you think I could improve on? And just being very, very personable at first because I could afford to be. Um, it's much harder now, even though I try to make somewhat of an effort. But basically what happened was the classic snowballing effect of like at first nobody cared, and then slowly but surely, like, one person from Mexico took interest. One person from Colorado took interest. I got a fan in Toronto. And you just talk to them, and basically what you start to do is you give them more of what they like. Don't make a music project a project of making friends that only talk about the troubles of their job every day. Give them more of what they want. Be the hero. Give them the escape that they seek. And for me, it was very easy because my music is very tropical, vacation, summer, festival based. So, I mean, I have a brand that people will message all the time and say, your music literally gets me through my workday. And that's true for most artists. I think a lot of people use music as an outlet, as a stress reliever, and as a result of that, most people's music is like that. But you know, take this as a really long way of saying I thought that charting would be the be all end all, and that it would attract management and a booking agent and just hordes of fans, and it really attracted, I hate to say it, but next to nothing, especially based on the amount of effort that it took to do that. Other people's you know experience could be different, but for the most part, what I have found is the only time that that is different. Maybe I shouldn't say the only, but largely what I have found is that it's usually different when you have a team behind you and the charting is a small piece of a very well planned puzzle and not just an anomaly that happened to happen because people liked one of your tracks or happened to like two or three of your tracks. So, what I mean by that is if you are a DJ producer and you don't have a team, or your team is like your manager who is your best friend, and you guys aren't working with a major label or a very, very high up indie label, and you don't have a huge budget, I have just come to find that usually that means the charting is nice if it happens, but it shouldn't be the only goal. If it does happen, it's a very small part of a huge puzzle. Um, it's more so something that when you are a bigger artist with a bigger budget and a bigger label and a bigger team behind you, you can get to number one, you can sit on that throne and camp out for a week, 2 weeks, or a month, 2 months, or even 3, 4, 5 months. That is then a very nice chunk of a pie, but not the only piece, once again. And that's when you can really start to see some traction. So these are just my findings, guys. As someone who has charted in the top 10 and even the top 5, not much came from it. It's much better to do what people like me do and what we're seeing people, depending on when you're watching this, the early days, quote unquote, of someone like Jana. JVNA is how you spell her name, and essentially she's kind of a dubstep, melodic dubstep, future bass, kind of bassy music DJ out of, I think, LA. And as far as I know, or at least as of making this video, I don't think that she's charted, but she blew my efforts as far as fan base out of the water. When you compare the two, it's like one is charting on one of the biggest DJ websites in the world, the other isn't, although she is releasing music on it, on a very reputable label for what she does, by the way. But it's that plus the streaming and the personable kind of availability of her, gaming a little bit, talking about gaming, showing her production techniques, making really cool remixes like the Evanescence remix, and doing things like that that really garnered 10 times, 100 times the fans that I did, just by thinking if I charted, it'd be a done deal. So do what works, not what works for the ego. Do what really gets the reaction from real people, and not necessarily just the accolade of like, well, I charted. Nobody really cared, guys. I hate to say that, but nobody really cared. My efforts were way better doing the trying to do a track a day or a track a week, and running ads and just engaging my current fan base and adding to that and nurturing it and engaging it and liking and making conversations and making more music. That was a way better winning formula. And depending on when you watch this, that formula will change a little bit, because how I acted on MySpace back in the day is not how I acted on SoundCloud when it was new, and how I acted on Instagram is not how I would act on SoundCloud or MySpace. So it's always changing. It's just watch your mindset and do what works. So I hope that helps you guys. I'll see you in the next video.